choose what I wanted to study, where I wanted to work, and later on in life, marry whom I wanted to. With all of this, today I'm 50, and I can tell you that my ranking in my list of priority is my family is first, my profession is next, and definitely all the other social projects that I work on comes after that. I volunteer for NGO working in the area of cancer care. I'm very active contributor to various community service projects of Rotary. I'm also part of the committee of local management associations. All of those come in, but yes, after my profession. And why I put family at first is finally each of us is an integral unit of our family before we joined our profession or contributed to any other projects. So, do you think that is what your image is about an IT professional with 28 years of experience, and that is what I do at work? If you think yes, tell me yes, so that at least I know that my audio is clear. Commonly, yes, that is the impression. Everybody thinks that you spend your time boxing technology, and it is a job which requires complete attention, dedication, devotion. If you're going to excel in your career, how can you bring up a family? How can you take part in any activities which are outside your work? So, to all my young friends who have joined here, all colleagues who are here on this call, and probably for everybody else, and I'm sure you'll agree after putting in work for a few years that this is not true. You need to be involved in the choices you make. I started off by saying it is each of us is an independent individual. It is our choice that has put us in the position we are in. Now, look at this. This was a very interesting statistic which actually I read up after being told about one of a good friend who heads the ICT Academy, who's the CEO of ICT Academy of Kerala. So why I put this here is that see the number of women enrolling in Bachelor of Technology and Bachelor of Engineering, the technical courses is increasing year on year. So there is no merit in saying that it is fewer women who get an opportunity to excel in this field. Now, yes, it is slightly skewed if you look at the branch of engineering. The largest number of graduates, I'm sure all of you know, in India still come to mechanical branch, and that has very few women. But then if you look at IT and electronics, which are the areas from which organizations like TCS that I'm part of hire to maximum graduates, it's about 50%. And it's not just 50% enrollment, it is about 50% graduation. Now, when TCS hires from fresh campus, like I'm sure many of you will be joining our family, the numbers joined are also matching that ratio. But sadly, if you look at what happens after about 15 years of experience, why 10 years of experience, maybe has more senior years, the number falls drastically. And that is where I said it's a question of how you make your choice. So, to my young friends, remember this very clearly. I have put it in caps when I was preparing this slide because I wanted to be imprinted in your mind. There are no gender specific rules, not in the field of technology. I'm not qualified to speak about any other industry because I haven't worked in any other. But I can tell you, other than the role that nature gives us, there is no gender specific role. And it is by design that the top of the pyramid is narrower. If you have to rise up, you have to work hard, you have to work smart, and most of all, stay hungry. If you're going to work in the field of technology, nothing is going to substitute continual learning. There is so much happening about my work. So I'm part of the analytics and insights team in TCS. Specifically, I'm part of the team which is data services, which works on the data part, technology to manage data. I work out of a center in Kochi in Kerala, and this team is largely it has grown as a big data competency team. And you know how fast technology changes. It means daily learning. It means not even knowing what is the discussion point on that day's meeting because it is something which is evolved before you could catch up. So there is no substitute to staying hungry if you're going to work. Definitely technology and in every other field. Okay. Next term I put in there, probably none of you will even recognize it because this is something which became very famous in 1995 when Windows launched its major release. It was called Windows 95. And when Windows came in, was introduced to the world, they coined this term called WYSIWYG. It expands to what you see is what you get. What you see is what you get, which was a huge leap from working in a command line. Why did I put it here? Because I want all of you to remember that in a life, in a typical life of a woman working in a profession, it becomes what you sow is what you get. If you're going to sow guilt, you're going to get that guilt. I repeat, we are here as a matter of our choice to excel in a chosen profession. Does it mean losing out on family time? Yes, it does. Does it mean not being able to meet everything that your neighbors are doing, or maybe neighbor's mother is saying her daughter is doing? It does. You will fall short of others' expectation. Don't bother. Make sure you meet your own expectation. There's another term I have put there, a very personal favorite of mine. I call it UPS. All of you are far too young to worry about this, but raising a family is a very important decision in a woman's life. In fact, many women, unfortunately, decide to take a long break and sometimes not even return from their career to raise children. Why did I say unfortunately? I mean, I have two sons. They are about in the same age bracket as many of you who are listening in first year and final year of engineering. So I love spending time with my sons and I love spending time with youngsters. So why did I use the word unfortunate? Unfortunate is when the mothers decide that the responsibility of bringing a family is going to outweigh their career choice. So UPS is something which expands in my own personal parlance to uninterrupted parental support. You have to make sure that when you start your family, you are not the backup for the baby caregiver. Then the last point I already explained in that slide is see, girls have. Okay, I want to bust this myth if any of you have heard something contrary. Girls actually have a propensity for science and mathematics. Think about your class. Aren't all of you toppers in your class? I know, okay, I told you I have two boys. Right from school through engineering, I see the girls outperform the boys. And that's the reason they get placed in campuses too. More importantly, girls have a huge advantage that they're also good at arts. And today it is not about STEM, but it is about STEAM. So all in all, nature has given us an advantage, not a disadvantage. All right, how much time do I have left? About 5 minutes, is it? Okay. So this is something outside of my work life. I can answer questions about work life if you wish. But I want to tell you that it's not about the boxing with the laptop that happens all the time. I spend a lot of time with my family. I told you I enjoy spending time with my children. I'm the one who keeps track of calendar and planet family time. In fact, I was having a chat with Sudeshna. Sudeshna and I are very good friends apart from being colleagues. And when she prompted me, I realized today is a classic example of balancing work life because it is my husband's birthday. Initially, I thought the session was in the morning, and when I realized it was in the evening, I was a little hesitant, but I had already committed to Amira and I did not want to go back on a commitment, particularly a written commitment. So then we just cancelled our
Thank you so much, ma'am. It means a lot.
And so we just cancelled our plans of going out for dinner and said we will do a dinner at home. So there is always a workaround. It depends on what kind of priorities you attach. So the last thing I'm going to tell you is if you are thinking in your mind, how can I make a start? This is where I can help you with some tips. As you start out your career, as you plan your life, simple tips. Remember, you have to be leading by example. You have to be positive and enthusiastic. Your parents, later on when you choose your life partner and the rest of your family, along with your colleagues, should come back with an impression that it's a positive experience. Enjoy every role. There are many roles which all of us get an opportunity to play. Revel in every role. That has been my motto. And along the way, there will be many objections. You have to learn to handle them. If you are thinking about the work part, as I told you, choose a company to concentrate on bidding by merit. Choose an organization which rewards meritocracy. When you pick up your first engagement, first project, look at the profile of the work. The size of the company no longer matters. And make sure that you get learning onto a technology which interests you. Go into the latest digital technologies, which I'm sure all of you would anyway be working on. Expand your base. Keep learning, keep picking up new things. Okay, so this is all that I do. Apart from the boxing, I mean, I enjoy speaking at different programs, be it some like this or other technical conferences or at Rotary events. I love my personal time, chatting with my family, and of course, all the all the family vacations. I have a fantastic team. Look at the picture on right. We spent last Sunday running together virtually. It was a solo run which we all got together to do for charity. So these are the rewards which if I were to count from all these years of work, that I think are most precious to me. It is a relationship. So wish all of you good luck in building fantastic relationships and do well in your career. Thank you.
That sounded like a huge experience, ma'am. Thank you for delivering this. Now we have Sudeshna, ma'am. Ma'am, handing over the platform to you to share your experiences.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay. Any time in between, if I break off or something, let me know. Okay.
I'm sure.
Okay. I don't have a presentation for this, so I thought today I'll spend on some storytelling. So, some quick incidents I will share with all of you, and maybe when we come to more question answer interactions, I can cover more subject matters. So let me give a little bit background of myself. I was born and brought up in a place called Durgapur. So Durgapur is a industrial township. So very traditionally, during our childhood, we always knew that okay, if somebody has to work, they have to be either an engineer or a doctor. If somebody doesn't need to work or they don't really aspire to work, they study arts. Much later I understood it's such a wrong perception, but that is how our thoughts, our parents, our society used to drive. And somehow in all of our family, my mom was not working, but it was always inbuilt among all of us that we have to work. There was no discussion around that. There was no yes or no, but it was very obvious that we'll have to work. So, and science was the obvious choice in class 11. And then personally, initially, I had a big aversion towards engineering. And again, that is a perception too, because to me, engineering at that time, so Durgapur had lot of industries and most of them had a lot of issues going on. My father used to work in a mining and machinery development company, and that was going into lockouts, and the blast furnaces were not at all good looking stuff. So my perception of engineering and having a doctor in the family, both of them, I had quite a bit of aversion. And the world, we did not have networking, we did not have internet at that time. So nothing beyond that I was aware of. And after that, so I never really gave a thought that okay, I have to do this. I always knew I have to do something. So after I went into physics honors, And I always loved mathematics, and even taking physics honors was like kind of a, like, okay, if you score this much, you first go for physics, then maths. It all comes as a chain where we really don't have our own preferences. I would say your generation is much, much advanced in that manner. You are making a lot of decisions early, which is very important for your career. So while studying physics and while becoming more accustomed to programming, I could understand I'm liking it. And then I did my MCAs, then I joined TCS in year 2000, and it has been 20 years now, so I'm all into it. So just to address the subject of today, um, first thing I want to say is, why do we associate the topic, the debate of work-life balance when it comes to technology? Why doesn't it come for other professions? I think there are two factors. One is the total number of hours you have to work, and second is the travel. So when I am talking of work, total number of hours. So if you say it is work and life balance, so what is work and what is life? To me, the boundary is very hazy. Life is not only my family, life is also me. And work is also not work. My identity is also part of it is coming from my personal life, coming from my work, coming from my social presence. So, if I have to take an example, my mom, she was a housewife. When I was a kid, our house was like, our home was most of the time we had around 10 15 relatives coming and staying for the local hospital facilities, etc., etc. My mom, 80% of her day was in the kitchen. Beyond that, she spent looking after ourselves, looking after the family. So she was doing great, I would say, looking after her personal life. But do you call that balance? That's not balance, because she was not taking care of herself. So it's not that work life balance is a challenge only when you are working. Forget technology work. Work life balance is when, I strongly believe, when we do not start by taking care of ourselves. I take this example very often, that in a flight, they always show that when there is a crisis, first put the mask on yourself and then help the other person beside you. So, unless we are aware of that, unless we stop that guilt feeling to feel that we are not doing enough, unless we try and please everybody in the world together, which somebody said cannot happen unless you are selling ice cream. So, it really, the balance will never come. Yes, number of hours is important. You have to stop somewhere, somewhere in, especially in our job and especially now while working remotely, it's very important to stop at certain point of time, concentrate, and don't have too much of parallelism in your work. That's very important. And again, the second aspect I want to touch is travel. So many women, when they are working, I myself, I took transfer from Mumbai. I joined in Mumbai. Then I got married in Calcutta. I took a transfer in Calcutta, and that was a conscious decision. So there are mutual decisions like, so, and I never really went for a job or went for long term being away from home. But in contrast to many other women co-workers, I have spent a lot of time in traveling. So, because I did not spend a considerable time outside continuously, there was a period when I was, because I'm in consulting, I even traveled to US in 2015-16 time frame. I have even traveled 10 to 12 times in a year. And again, when talking of perception, and this is not something in India, and this is not something which is particularly to do with some segment of people. Sometimes perception matters so much. I still remember in an immigration in New Jersey, the person in the immigration, he asked me, he looked at my passport and saw my history travels, and then he said, "Okay, are you married?" I said, "Yes." Then he said, "Do you have a kid?" I said, "Yes." Then he said, "Who takes care of him when you are traveling?" I said, "My husband does. I have help at home. My in laws, one of my in laws are there. So, and I usually don't travel more than 2 weeks. So, that's kind of a compromise I have done." Then he said, okay, if your husband doesn't have any problem, I don't have any problem, and he stamped my passport. So that was so funny. And with years, I have learned to, there's, you should also take this positively, that when people ask you, nobody is going to, at least even now, nobody asks a man that, okay, you are away for 2 weeks, how you're managing home. But somebody is asking you. So I consider that as a respect. I consider that people giving the importance that I am taking care of my office, taking care of my family, and there's a responsibility in both places where we are balancing now. But while we are doing this balancing, the whole factor of how much you are really respecting yourself becomes very important. Another small incident, or I would say decision, to share with all of you. Me and my husband, we are classmates, so we joined TCS together. And while I am a kind of very much involved in my profession, and I like doing this job, my husband has a very um, passionate hobby which he pursues. He's a film critic. He's a film critic. He writes books on films, and so at the age of 40, we are of the same age, we decided that he will step away. Because, first of all, a very hectic life, a work life, and with both the parents doing the same kind of work, with a lot of work behind your work schedule or travel, that really becomes difficult. And at that junction, so the work life balance paradigm is not about an individual, it's about the total family setup, how much uh, mutually responsibility we are dividing, etc., etc. So he stepped away. He left IT. He went into a school and took up an administrative role. That is more of a 9 to 5 job. It's a very responsible job, especially at this point of time when there is so much of online education is going on. But obviously, the extended hours or travel, etc., doesn't really hamper him anymore. And he is the person who takes care of 200% of my son's studies. That is one thing I don't have to bother at all. So this has been a understanding. And when I travel, it's so like rest of, you can say, home administration. So it's everything I do it remotely. I take care of provisions for 2 weeks. I set the menu. I have an Excel sheet which kind of calculates randomly what should be the breakfast, what should be the dinner for the next 15 days. So all those are set, and it works out. So what I would really like to stress, that it is all together. It's nothing between that, okay, work-life balance is a issue for me, it's not an issue for my husband. And most importantly, we have to believe that when I got, I mean, I was really not too, I mean, right at this point of time, I'm engaged with a lot of women leadership and women development programs. I'm the vice chair of Women in Engineering in Kolkata. I run an organization from Kolkata called Women in Data. I'm the Kolkata chapter lead for that. But even 10 years back, I thought that there is no need to have separate organizations for uh, focused on women awareness. But now I do believe, just to create the awareness, that there should not be any difference. Because I have seen people not only while getting engaged into engineering work or technology work, also from a retention perspective. So people do drop out. People do drop out when they have kids. People do drop out when they relocate elsewhere with their husband. People do drop out when they are not able to cope up with how do they balance out the workload, and they are taking care everything and anything at home. So it is not only about how I am experiencing, it is very important about creating the awareness and creating the confidence in others also, that you have to believe that there is no set boundary for this. So that is what I want to, I just wanted to give some highlights on some bit of experience from my life.
That word sounded really heavy, ma'am, especially when you said to stop at some points. Only a few people say no to things. That's really great. Now we'll move on to Mrs. Neeraja Ganesh, ma'am. I got the platform to you.
Thank you. If you can give me the share rights, and please tell me if my audio is clear.
Ma'am,
Okay, I
you're
have the
clear,
share.
ma'am.
Audio is
Yes,
clear.
ma'am.
I will go off the video when I'm sharing my presentation, and I could come on video when we take questions later. But I have to say,
Yes.
having come third, I think I'm going to repeat a lot of what Sudeshna and Sujata have said, but that only is going to emphasize to the audience today that the stories are similar. All right, so let me just share my screen, and I'm going off video for a while. Do tell me if you're able to see it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So I have already been introduced as the Director Relationships of National Education Society of Karnataka, and of course the many other things that I do on a professional front. I believe I can also be introduced this way, that I'm a daughter, a wife, a daughter-in-law, a mother, and of course the plenty of other relationships that we carry in our life. But what if I introduce myself this way, where I say all the companies that I worked at in my last 25 years of corporate career, and then I went on to head Jobs for a Foundation, and now at the National Education Society of Karnataka, and then the few places that I volunteer and a few awards that I have won. And in the middle is a picture of my family, of course, the immediate family, which is husband and my 18-year-old daughter. This was taken at our 25th wedding anniversary we celebrated last month, sorry, not even last year. And we are talking about is work-life balance for women engineers an illusion? I think that the engineers terminology is just incidental because we are on an IEEE platform, but I think the question itself is, for the larger women population that we have in our country, is work-life balance for women an illusion? And I will say an illusion, yes, if we are going to talk about the term balance, because for me, the definition of balance is equal. A balance always means that, both sides are equal. And in this case, if it is work and if it is life, whatever that means, and if you're looking at it in equality, I think it's going to be a little difficult. But if you are going to paint a picture of this kind where, it's not work of 8 hours and whatever you want to do in life of 8 hours and sleep 8 hours, but a more integrated life, I think that's something that, is doable. And I think the starting point for that is to set your priorities. Sounds simple, and I know that Sujata spoke about it. I know that Ms. Deshna spoke about it. While it sounds simple, it is not that simple. So let me talk about how did I go about setting my priorities when I had to get married. And I think till then life is quite cool, right? I don't think we really think about work-life balance till then. Life goes on very well. Work or school or whatever else you do goes on very well. But when I had to get married, I was very clear that in my priority list, family came first. I'm so glad that, Sujata also mentioned the same thing. Family came first. And for me, I'm an only child to my parents, and family at that point in time, the immediate family was my parents. And I'm talking about the early 1990s where the IT boom was all going to the US. The US market was open and, it was pre-Y2K. So there were enough and more jobs in the US. And for those of us who grew up from middle class backgrounds, earning in US dollars was a great thing. And I come from a Tambram family, Tamilian Brahmin family from the south of India. You will see the entire population, girls and boys, only looking to go to the US. So I told my parents that for me, you matter a lot, and hence you will find the boy for me who's going to be in Bangalore. So I didn't want the headache of finding a boy for myself. So I gave that headache to my parents. And it was a real headache because I put in this condition that he has to be in Bangalore, which was a very, very tough ask. It took them 4 years to find me, my husband. What I'm trying to say is I have nothing against going to the US or anything like that. But in my life, in my list of priorities, family mattered. And hence I took the decision, which was that I will base and build a career in Bangalore, in India, whatever that be. So the minute you have priorities very clear, decision-making becomes very, very easy. And through your life, you will have, priorities changing. So after I got married and I had my daughter, who's 18 now, I took a 10-month break, after which I went back to work. But I was very clear with my organization that I will do a role which will not extend me to work beyond 6, because I want to spend the evenings with my daughter, because I was leaving her in the mornings. That was again based on the priorities that I had, which was family and then career. It went on for quite a while till my daughter turned to be 3.5. And at that point in time, I was wanting to shift from one project to another. And, my business unit head said that, Nirja, I know your capabilities, but if you're going to put these restrictions around, number of hours and no travel, Sudeshna had said no travel. At that point in time, travel was very important. We are not talking about a COVID era and a Zoom era. People had to see you in flesh and blood to believe that you are capable and you will deliver results. And my BU had said, at least for 2 to 3 weeks, you have to go and meet your on-site stakeholders, which was Melbourne at that point in time. I was working at ANZ, for them to believe that you can deliver and you can really pick up a very, prestigious and challenging assignment. So I decided that I will do that. Did that mean that family came down in the priority list? Not necessarily, but I decided that I'm going to, manage that by leaving, my daughter who was 3.5 in the care of my in-laws, my parents and my husband. And I did that trip. And I came up with a really, really challenging assignment, which did take me long hours, but I chose to do that. I still remember this incident. In the month of August, we had a long weekend. I think it was Independence Day on a Thursday and Friday was some other. August is full of festivals, right? Some festival and then Saturday, Sunday, 4 days. And my husband told my 3.5-year girl that, it's a long weekend and mama will be at home. And my girl told my husband, so what? She'll be sitting with her laptop. It hurts. So I will tell you that these things will happen. And you will, kind of wonder whether you took the right decision or not. But going back to your list of priorities will always kind of, take you in the direction that you wish to go. And I put on that quote from, Sheenam, just to tell you that priorities will change. So when, my daughter became a teenager, for 2 years, I had a really, really difficult time with her, teenagers, and most of them, if you're students, you've kind of probably just gone past that phase of your life. And I, again, was given a very, very exciting opportunity. It was like a customer account management role. And I wanted to do it. And I knew the impact I could create. But I knew that also meant that I could get escalations at any point in time, the evening or night. And I told my boss that I will not do that role at that point in time, because what if I was on an escalation call and my daughter came in and said, I want to speak to you. And I tell her, let's talk after 15 minutes. Given the relationship that I was having with my girl at that point in time, who knows, she may not even come back to me after the 15 minutes. And if this record, it happened a second and a third time, maybe, she'll stop even coming to me and saying, I want to talk to you, Mom. So I told him I will not pick this role. And he said, how many times do you think this is going to happen, that she wants to talk exactly when there is an escalation call? And I said, even if it happens once in this already, bad relationship that is between me and my daughter, I don't want it to go worse. So I took that decision again, based on that priority at that phase of life. But then when I moved out of the corporate life and I went on to head jobs for her foundation, it was a 24/7 role. I was heading a not-for-profit foundation, newly established. I had nobody else in the team. I was the only person. And I joke, but it is also a reality that except for making chai, I did everything from seeking partnerships, building community, content, digital marketing, newsletters, everything. I did it all by myself. But at that point in time, I could do it because I had worked on the relationship with my daughter. And I knew that now if she wants me, she will badger me to death and get me. And if she sees that I am in a particular call and she needs to wait, she will. Our relationship had ironed out. I also chose to move out of the corporate career at that point in time because I knew that the entire support system that I had, which was my in-laws and my mother and my husband, needed attention at home because all of them were going through bad phases of health. So really, really ensure that your priorities are known to you. And it is not easy to set the list of priorities because you have to have one thing at one priority number. People say, okay, fine, this also and that also at priority 1. Can't have an also. It has to be only one. So if you could only focus on one thing in your life, what would it be? Answer that question, and that will probably become your priority 1. And then you take the question, if I could focus on a second thing, what would that be? So set your priorities, and that will ensure decision making is very easy, and you will never think, oh my God, where is my work and life and balance and integration? Once you have your priorities right, you have to put in your days and weeks, exactly like Sudeshna and Sujata said. Your calendar has to be an integrated calendar. So I will tell you that I went to the dentist with my daughter last month. You know, she is still going through her orthodontic treatment, and the doc gave the next month's appointment as 12th October. And I opened my calendar right there and put it in, and my daughter just laughed her head off. She said, are you putting these things in the calendar? And I said, yes, I have to. Because if I don't, especially in the kind of work that I do today, which is a lot of freelance work, and given that the boundaries have now blurred with working from home, and I'm okay to kind of, you know, take meetings at any point in day and time, if I don't have this in my calendar, then I will probably not be able to do the dentist meet or go with her. And then you'll have a last minute stress of who goes, and, you know, somebody will say you're not taking responsibility, etc. So you have to have one integrated calendar to ensure that whatever aspects of work and life. So in the picture that I painted, there was, of course, you know, voluntary work, and there is, you know, professional work, and there is home. You could have spiritual aspects, you can have fitness, and anything that is in your priority list, the 3 to 5 things that are your top priority, have to figure not only in your daily calendar, but plan for the week, because that is when, you know, you will be able to move things around if there is an emergency, you know, and say, okay, fine, I have a weekly calendar set, and there is some space on a Thursday, and Monday there's an emergency. Let me move the Monday bit to a Thursday and pick up this emergency. Very, very important. Third, which we probably don't do too much of, is seek support. Okay. Ask for help. The minute the lockdown happened, you know, I have a Miss Uma who is a kind of helps us with cooking, and I have Manjula, who is the housemaid. Both of them, of course, stopped coming. And it was not only for the multiple lockdowns that we had. I knew that even after unlock, I was not going to bring them back for a while. Nothing changed for my husband, nothing changed for my mother-in-law, nothing changed for my daughter. But, you know, was working from home, and I had all these other things to take care of. After 10 days, when I realized that nobody is, you know, even looking around, empathizing, asking questions, I asked. I said, look, there is a need for me to get help. There's a buffet of, you know, chores that are available, and each of you can pick what interests you. But if you think that you still cannot, then I will have to drop a few things. And the thing that I hate most, which is cooking, I'll probably drop that, and tomorrow breakfast will not be available. Now, I'm not saying you need to have a conversation of that sort. I could possibly do it because of 25 years of marriage, but it is important for you to seek support in any form, both at work and at home. I'm not saying only at home. At work also, sometimes you will need to ask for that help when there is a need. You could possibly delegate. You could possibly say, you know, can somebody do a little bit for you so that, you know, you can kind of concentrate on something else. Extremely important. You are not a superwoman. Reach out for support. And be guilt-free about reaching out for support. This is another thing that kills most women. Okay. Yes, this is a story that you will hear again. Sudeshna told you the same story. It is exactly that. You have to take care of yourselves and don't have the guilt. So again, I go back to my younger days where, you know, I used to run these panel discussions at the work place that I think it was ANZ, and I had all these senior women leaders who would be there on the panel. And I would ask all my questions of, you know, the guilt that I was feeling to them. So I asked one of these ladies, supposing you had, you know, some kind of an aspiration for your child in terms of the marks that she should score in the test, and she did not score, you know, that much. Won't you feel guilty that maybe if I had been around and, you know, helped her prepare for the test, she would have probably gotten more marks? And she asked me, what is the guarantee she would have got more? Maybe she would have got lesser if I was around. And that really made me thinking. We think that nothing can happen without us around. We only can brush our child's teeth the best. The husband can't do it. We only can tie his or her shoes, right? Let go. People will learn. If they're not doing a great job or as good as you, they will learn. Let go and don't ever regret. Don't be guilty, because the entire ecosystem will give you the gift of guilt, including your parents and family and friends. but it is for you going back to what your priorities are, and hence you kind of let go of certain things and keep certain things in focus. You are the only person that you are answerable to. And finally, this has also been spoken of, ensure there is me time. In all the pictures that you will draw for yourself, remember this: in your priorities there has to be a me time, which then goes into your calendar, and which you kind of respect without guilt, and you will let go of certain other things to ensure that your me time is taken care of, whatever that me time is. So I will again narrate a story of when I turned 30. For whatever reason, I suddenly put on 10 kilos of weight. Probably it was my hormones or whatever. Nothing else had changed in life. So after 6 months of that weight gain, I picked up, I bought a treadmill and I started walking on it every day. And after 2 months, the weighing scale showed me 2 more kilos. So I said, now is the time to meet a doctor. And I went to her, and, she kind of told me many things: do this, don't do this. And we were kind of working on it, but nothing was working. The weight was not coming down at all. And then she asked me, tell me what your, schedule is like. So I told her, see, I wake up at 4:30 a.m., which is half an hour before, what I used to, wake up. Otherwise, my, waking up time was 5 o'clock, and then it goes on till 10 in the night or whatever, because it's packed work and home and everything. Why am I waking up half an hour early? Because I have to squeeze in this time for the treadmill, which I'm not able to get during the day. And she stopped me right there. And she said, that is why you're putting on weight, because the body already knows that there's so much that you have to, give, so many calories that are going to be anyways burnt for your regular work. And now you're putting extra work in terms of that half an hour. And so it's conserving more calories and not necessarily, burning them. And she said, you will stop your 4:30 a.m. wake up, and you are going to stop your treadmill, go back to your regular hours. And in those regular hours, you will find half an hour of time where you will not do anything. And it was a big thing for me, because I thought that I used to be like, even for a minute, if I sit not doing something, it was a criminal waste. And she said, half an hour, you will not do anything. So then I decided, let me pick up a TV serial for half an hour, and that will kind of comply with her. And that has become my me time till today. I do watch half an hour of TV, whatever, serial or whatever, Prime, on Amazon Prime or something. And today, in the freelance and world that I am, including the day job, Saturday, Sunday, everything is kind of, I have stuff to do, and I have so many speaking engagements, which is fine now for me, because now at 6 o'clock, if I sit twiddling my thumbs, nobody is going to come and talk with me. My daughter, 18-year-old, has got her own stuff to do, and husband has got his own stuff to do. So I am okay taking meetings through the day, but I have made it a point that over a weekend I will catch a movie. So that's kind of my me time for the entire week. Every day, half an hour of TV, and maybe, over the weekend, a movie. So whatever that be, you have to, because that is what is going to energize you to run you through the rest of the day, in the week, in the month, in the years to come. So going back to that picture, which tells you how my life has been in the 25 years of marriage, and in the 28 plus years of my career, 25 of which was in the engineering IT field, it is really about getting out of the habit of seeing things as a trade-off. It is focusing on creating harmony. So it is not about balance, because the definition of balance is 8-8-8, which is you're never going to get. It could be 20 hours of work one day and 20 hours of rest on another. But as long as there is harmony and you're loving what you do, just like, Sujata put in a list of things that she wants to do, social projects, and there is family time, and there is professional work, and all of that. Get that list of priority and ensure you integrate it, and you will have a harmonious life, even as an engineer. All right. With that, I will move on. I don't know, for whatever reason, yes, the slide is not moving ahead. Thank you. And those are my LinkedIn credentials. Happy to be connected for more conversations. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a lot of challenges in your life. Thank you for being part of this discussion. Next, we have Lakshmi ma'am. Lakshmi ma'am is between her health issues, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you, Amira. Oh, it was such a fantastic panel. Sudeshna, Sujata, Neeraja, my God, it was like I think life relived for me. More or less, I think all of us are in the same state. I will be very brief. I think we'll allow people to ask questions. Is that okay, Amira?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's fine.
Yeah, I will try to be brief. It was, I think, all the panelists really covered so well the priorities, what we need to consider. Anyway, let me also go back to a little bit of. I would like to say that whatever life, at least we are looking at and seeing the work-life balance, it all depends on the association. That's what I would like to say, because when we were young, of course, my father is a retired professor from the Indian Institute of Science today. So he was very active, and at that time, we were also mingling with the children of the other professors. And all the time, the only kind of discussions was, what do we study? Do we take physics? Do you take biology? Do you go to uh, being a scientist? Most of us wanted to become scientists. That's because the association was like that with us. So that's how I went on to do my MSc Physics from IIT Madras, and but I always loved electronics. And though my degree was in electronics, I had to go to IIT for physics because there was nothing like specialization in electronics. So then I moved on to do MS and PhD from Indian Institute of Science in the electronics and communication engineering, because my passion was to learn electronics, and especially the circuit theory was my passion. But I didn't know how I would do that. I only know that I like it. So that's when, of course, I moved to IISc, and then I mean, we are very young at that point of time. We are not sure. We don't have proper mentors. Of course, my father was always a guiding factor at home. And so he used to tell us, yes, to go, and of course, he's a chemical engineer, so he could not guide me in this. So I then joined in the ECE department, and then actually, I wanted to work very much on microwave integrated circuits. That was my favorite, because that was a project I had done in IIT Madras and wanted to continue that for my MS and PhD. But unfortunately, I mean, many times we have a passion, but sometimes it's not possible to choose that. Though the first thing was to secure a seat in IISc. And once I got a seat in IISc, it was not my decision to take up only microwave integrated circuits, because the professors who were already there, their quota was over and things like that. So there I was asked to take up something on devices, electronic devices, and more related to semiconductors. I said, that's fine. So then I asked my professor, how will I use my, whatever I have done for my microwave integrated circuits, how will I use it for my MS? So that's how they chalked out, they knew my background, and they knew what was the requirement, because we wanted to work on polysilicon. So how I could use my knowledge on microwave integrated circuits to work on polysilicon. And so that was a 3-year program. And of course, that is another story by itself. I had done continuously characterization of lot of different material contacts on polysilicon, and then arrived at a lot of results, and then just went to the professor to show him. He asked one simple question. I'm sure all the electronics people will appreciate this. Is it a ohmic contact or a Schottky? Such a basic question I never even thought about. So the whole characterization went out of the window. So I had to do everything again. That day it was like a doomsday I felt. So why am I saying all this? I mean, of course, that at that point of time I was not married, but still the tension of work, how it happened, and at home, yeah, parents will always love to take care of you, and they'll say, don't worry, it'll be fine. And I said, I need a break. So we went out somewhere, came back, and then again fresh started the whole thing. So this is how life is. And then as we move on, So I feel we should divide our whole, at least we can divide our life into, say, something like three parts, you know. One is when we are between 20 and 30 years, and 30 to 40, and 40 to 50. So 20 to 30 is where we finish our education, and we are bubbling, you know, like we want to do something. I'm sure all the young girls here want to take up something, do something, and do something for the society. There's a lot of things that is happening, and burning desires are there in the mind. So then that's when you get into a job. Of course, in my case, I took up job only when I was 30, after I was married. So my more of my work-life balance was during my PhD. And that's another thing, because PhD also takes away a lot of your time, because I used to work on high temperature superconductors, where there was a 48-hour annealing to be done in the furnace. So I used to stay back, and I was married at that time, and my daughter was, say, she was just born, and she was a few months old, but still managed the whole thing because I had help at home. My parents were there, and I was able to manage that. And I remember during writing my thesis, she was about 2 years, and she used to be playing, and I used to do my work. I mean, it's all you have to enjoy what you do, and there's nothing like equal balance, you know. Like I put this, I put this. So it's all how you enjoy your life along with what is happening in your real life, and of course your career. Then I took up a job in ITI, and there, of course, the whole from then on, the whole thing started. That my working hours are very long, and the time I spend with family is had come down a lot. But definitely, you should make. It was not easy initially. It was very difficult, but the thing is, when you are at work, give 100% to the work, and once you are at home, give 100% at home. This is what I recommend. Don't mix up things and bring this there and make a mess out of the whole thing, and be very clear as to. It's very easy to say, but it is not that easy to follow, right? So and my long hours of journey, like I spend almost at least, because I live in Bangalore, as you all know, we also almost spend 2 hours or 3 hours in travel itself. A lot can be achieved in travel, right? Okay. You get the me time, which Neeraja was telling. I can hear to my favorite songs. I can listen to a lot of music. I can read books, and I love reading. So I do a lot of reading on my journey. And that's how I improve my communication skills and those things. So, and when the children are small, of course, you face a lot of difficulties. You may have to apply a lot of, you may be losing a lot of leave. I think you should always compare yourself with yourself. Well, how were you the previous day, the previous month, and how you have improved? And what are the small tweaking you can do to improve your productivity? That's what I can tell. So always I looked at something called something to be always happening in the back burner. So after my PhD, I went to ITI, and then I moved on to CDOT, where I became a reliability expert. Right, like I do a lot of prediction for reliability in telecom systems, and that has been there for a very long time. Almost 20 years I have been working on this field. That is a pure technical, and lot of statistics and lot of calculations involved, and one mistake leads to a lot of problems. So a constant concentration is very, very important in that. And that while I was doing that, in my PhD, my professor was so keen that we should always what do you say, follow the file a patent. So that's what they were looking at. So that's when I learned how to file a patent and things like that. And then in the back burner, I started learning, started liking how to file a patent and the intellectual property rights. So that's when I did a course in law, and that was back burner. Though my front end was all reliability and calculations, but do you see the difference? There's a lot of difference between these two things. But still, there was a chance for me to, there was a chance for an IPR expert in my own organization, and I took up as an additional responsibility of doing the reliability prediction also. That's when I moved on, and it gave me a lot of inner interest. And so always I feel that we should have something else coming up, and we should always be current. Unless we are current in these scenarios, we cannot move ahead. There is nothing like gender bias. It is more how current you are in your situation, and how you are good at, and how you can improve. And also you should be good at marketing yourself, I should say. So whenever a chance comes, and especially never give up on public speaking. Say, for example, there is a conference, never hesitate to go and give a talk there. And especially when you are very strong in your fundamentals and your technology, it's very easy to give a talk of 10 to 15 minutes or 20 minutes. And always that 20 minutes talk, the preparation for that will increase your knowledge like anything. And that's how I have moved on. So I would, first of all, I would like to thank IEEE. Last 12 to 15 years, I have been in Women in Engineering. Initially, for 5 years, I think myself and Dr. Deepash and I ran the show for almost 5 years because there was nobody coming in as volunteers. Then slowly now, I'm so happy to say Bangalore Women in Engineering Affinity Group is one of the largest in India. So they are doing great job, and I feel so much of joy to see that there is a lot of movement, and lot of young girls are getting lot of benefit from lot of volunteers around. So this is all I had to say, and I would like to take more questions. And thank you very much for organizing this. Thank you, Amira. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So all these experiences covered most of the questions. I've selected a few. So let's begin with the question section.
Yes.
Okay. So what? So the question is there a need or necessity of a women wing for a company? Most of the companies are having a particular women wing. So what is the need of it? We'll start with Neeraja ma'am.
Sure. So I think from this conversation itself, you would have realized that the amount of sharing that the four panelists have done, and there are similarities, and there is some learning that each of us has had from somebody else's life and experience. Uh, so when there is a network of that kind, uh, it makes us feel a lot more empowered, because it is a network of like-minded individuals going through similar phases of life. Some have battled something, some have kind of done something in a different manner. And the other thing which people usually say, that women don't usually network too well. I don't know, I'm a super networker, so I can't say much about it, and I don't know about the men, and the men in the audience have to say whether they network well or not. But it is extremely important. So where do you start the networking? So start having these smaller women's groups in the organizations, where you also get to meet people outside of your own vertical, outside of your own business unit, or if you are in an institution outside of your own department. And then you can kind of share, learn, and half of your problems get resolved there. You don't need external help for it. And slowly the network also kind of grows. You're able to contribute, and it also helps you. So I think it's extremely important in my view.
Yes, ma'am. Sudeshna ma'am, anything to add on?
Yes, I absolutely agree on the networking part, and that I have seen throughout my whole journey. I myself, I was very pathetic in networking. It was never a professional networking. So that is one. And secondly, as I was mentioning, that in my entire career, I have never really faced any discrimination or inclusivity issues. So around 2005, when I was recommended for a women leadership program, I had asked our head that why do you need a women leadership program? That itself is a discrimination. So she had told me a very nice thing. She said that you have not faced discrimination. That does not mean that discrimination does not exist. So if you feel you are in a position to help others, you should realize that and participate. And secondly, she said that it is also about the presence. it is currently, if you see in every company, look at the percentage of women employees, look at the percentage of women in leadership, in forefront, where people know. That is pathetic. So that is very important. And encouraging women, it's not only about women, encouraging a diverse thought in people is very important, and creating that awareness is very important. So more these groups are formed, it becomes very easy to network, to connect with each other. And very importantly, when a senior leadership layer of people are forming this group and including middle management or junior associates, it really gives a platform for people to talk about their problems, and we can also collectively really help in solving that. So definitely it is very much in use, but one thing we have to keep in mind, that we should not disturb the main theme of these groups is inclusivity. So it is about diversification and inclusivity. It is not actually much delimited by women participants only. So that's from me.
Yeah, usually these are open.
Amira, not able to hear you too well.
Yeah, I thought it was my bandwidth problem. So, yeah, I also could not hear her.
I'm saying you may want to put the question on the chat because we are finding it difficult to hear.
Okay, this is Sujata here. Am I audible? Is it clear?
Yes, Sujata.
Okay, I think I heard Amira tell my name, though her audio was not very clear. Dija, completely with you, and Sudeshna, of course. You have already spoken about why we need women organizations in a larger setup where there is no, I remember I said there is no gender specific role, but still we need this because it just helps to get to know others. Yes, Amina? No, not too well. Okay, I'll just complete what I was saying. Definitely, it helps to have met someone who's fought the battle and won. And then, as Sudeshna said, these are also great opportunities for helping others just network. But and there is a third aspect which I want all of you to pick up and appreciate. Just as you heard of Old Boys Club, something similar to that, I'm sure everybody will agree. It is a fantastic thing to have a girlfriends club. Some of my best friends from college, six of us, we are all over the world. You know, we meet once a year somewhere in the world. Yeah, we did our 2020 meeting also in February. We spent Valentine's Day in Kolkata. So it's a fantastic safety net. It's to have friends, girlfriends, whom you can confide in professionally and personally. And that is something which will really help you both overcome difficulties you have, get answers to difficult questions. It is a very good idea also to encourage young women, youngsters who are in a dilemma. And you know, we don't always get this kind of an opportunity to listen to everybody talk about I did it and I won, but this can be a smaller group at your workplace. Thank you.
Lakshmi ma'am, to add on.
I think they have really given the ideas. Yeah, that I think women in engineering in our own organization, since we have especially in colleges and even in our organization, we have smaller groups And we actually every year we do something, some sort of a skill building. It may not be gender specific, but definitely there is, what do you say, consciously there is a program where it is highlighted as to what could a lady do or what a guy could do, so that there is some sort of inclusivity. And many times what happens is, guys, in the workplace, many people, many of us know what happens at the family level, but many times people do not know what happens at the organization level. That's when we try to bring some experts and have some training as to make some sort of an awareness as to how the gender behavior has to happen.
Yeah, so the next question is the continuation of this. So, how are women doing in leadership roles of technology apart from the women wings of these companies? What Sujata ma'am?
Firstly, there is a sampling error. There were fewer women entering profession, maybe 20, 25, 30 years ago, and hence there are fewer at a top position. Given that, even if you normalize it, now I think Sudeshna already told the number, it's pathetic. I think she was being polite because it is in such low unit percentages, women in leadership. If you consider leadership to be even someone with a work experience of 20 years and above, in a position which is a high in the hierarchy in terms of roles and responsibility. Now, why is this happening is one part, but if the question is how are they performing, I can tell you from the experience, our organization TCS has 450,000 employees, more than 1/3 are women. So that's 150,000, very large number. The women always, and I can talk about my own teams, the women are always outperforming. They are the ones with a flair for multitasking, and given a task, given a responsibility, there is nothing to stop them from achieving it unless it is their family constraints which are pulling them back. I also had roles for many years, except in the last few years, which had 50% travel time. So it is all there cannot be any impediment except in your own mind. If as a woman employee, you go back to your manager or to other team members, putting a constraint of your own self, then you'll continuously get ticked off as unreliable. And that's a worst thing that can happen. So to the question, how are women performing? Those who are performing stupendously well. Those who haven't taken up this opportunity is because they have made a choice not to. Thank you.
Anything to add, Neeraja ma'am?
So, so I'm not in technology, core technology now, but in my last role that I was in, with a lot of travel, so I worked in a services company, and this was at a client, which was a 15-year-old client. Okay, so I'm talking about the business unit head and the next layer, and I was at the third layer. The first after I got into the role, because it was the first time I was getting into this client role, there was an offsite that I went to. So it was these three layers, right? The business unit, the next, and the next. About 25 of us. And I went in, and I was the only woman there. And this is a 15-year-old client history, right? We are talking about. And apparently, I was the first woman in those 15 years. Yes, those challenges are there. Things are getting better, is what I do see and I hear. But I agree that it is also a question of, do we want to do it? Because I know the minute I saw as myself as the only woman there, it put on an added pressure that I have to perform. I have to ensure that, I prove myself that a woman can do this role. And I was traveling like crazy, Bangalore, Pune. And it was around that time, after 6 months, when I told you my entire family support system came crumbling down. So I had to choose to, move out. And I felt extremely, extremely guilty about it. But the thing which kind of happened after 3 months of having moved out was my colleague, a male, in a similar role as mine, who was also doing this shuttling, came and told me he's quit because he realized the need to be there for his family. And he said, I'm not going to choose a role which is going to be like this crazy travel, which is going to be a US client for those stupid hours, or those other hours which I don't want to manage with a young child at home. I want to spend time with family. So I think today men and women are realizing that it's a requirement of whatever your priorities at that stage in life are. And then you kind of take it forward. But there was another, so before I moved out of that role, I actually went to someone who I look up as a mentor, a very senior woman leader. And she told me, what is the big deal about you not being able to travel? She said, and I'm talking pre-COVID, right? So today it sounds very funny, but she said, if you are outside of Bangalore, where I live, I think you will make an attempt to do a video call every day to your family and speak to them at least for 20 minutes. I think if you're in Bangalore, you may not even do that. You'll just kind of bring your laptop from office to work and continue. So she said, negotiate that you are there in the other city for 4 days and come back, and the 5th day is done from Bangalore, and you manage a weekend, but don't come out. But I came out because at that time I felt I needed to be with family. So yeah, that's an answer to the question, to say numbers are limited. It is growing, but there are also other aspects that people choose. It's a choice also of the woman, because the ecosystem is trying to enable, and it's a choice of both the man and the woman, I think, in the days to come by.
Yeah, true. It's a choice. Sudeshna ma'am, anything to add on?
Yes, Neerja and Sujata really covered the main facts. I would just like to touch upon one aspect. Is predominantly I won't say everybody, but another reason for holding on to women not being into visible or leadership position is also on the self doubt. We are overtly unnecessarily modest. We always question on, okay, this is not enough. And so I am not telling that our other counterparts in the other gender are always very flamboyant and talking aloud. It's not very generic, but predominantly, if you see, right from when we were in school, in college, in profession, we are always doubting, okay, is this enough? And we never really believe that we are the best or we will be doing this role well. So that is also one of the reasons why networking, why these interactions are very important, and that really helps a person also to come out, other than whatever Neerja and Sujata mentioned.
Yes. To wind up, Lakshmi ma'am, anything to add on?
Actually, now I would like to say the Tina factor, we call it in our, there is no alternative. So whenever there is no alternative, women are there, because many times the men are very easily, they'll say they don't want to do something. But women always, we are all that love. I mean, we love doing things. We want to keep, things in good shape, so we'll say, okay, we will take it up. Even though it is going to be a tough job, we would like to take it up, and then we perform. And now in most of the roles, if you take women, like in the managerial roles, they are sort of the, what do you say, the glue, they can, the kind of ego the women have is much, much less compared to what men have. So and many times the management feels that women can manage this kind of ecosystem very well. So we are there above middle management. There are a lot of ladies, but of course, going to the top, yeah, there is a difficulty. That I don't know what it is. There is a lot of competition. Of course, there are more men there at that point of time. So we have to wait and watch, as Sujata and Krishna, everybody said. Maybe now, I think now it will be increasing, and maybe the pyramid is reversed now. Okay. Thank you.
Due to time constraint, we'll have to wind up now. And as all the panelists spoke, it's all about our choice and our priorities being set. So it is finally our decision what makes the change. It was really amazing to host you all. Your experiences have really boosted, to be honest. Me, it boosted so much because I'm from an Orthodox minority family, breaking some society rules every day, hearing so much. And really sorry for the absentee count. We nearly had 100 plus registrations, but maybe due to these online classes, everyone have reached a saturation point. But we'll be streaming this. We have recorded the session, and I take this opportunity to thank all our panelists on behalf of IEEE India Council Student Coordination Team and myself. Thank you all. We'll keep connected.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amira. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank
everyone.
you. Yeah.
Nice
Goodbye.
meeting all of you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It was very, very good meeting up and wonderful learning for all of us, not just for the participants. Thank you
I
for your
know.
insights.
You too.
Good. Goodbye.
Okay.
Bye. Good night.
Bye. Goodbye.